All right, it's 2:00. You guys are hearing me. I'm not sure how many people will show up today. I gave almost no notice for this one. Just had some time today, so I thought, oh, we'll see who's available. Maybe we can talk a little bit IPOs. So anyways, for whoever's here, welcome. Definitely have the chat over there, and I will get to the questions in just a bit. I want to talk a little bit about what happened this week, and talk a little bit about some of these strategies you might have if you feel like the big companies that came out just completely, was traded much higher than you thought it would be. So we always talk about that as FOMO, fear of missing out. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But while we're waiting for some people to join, and right now we got 3. Oh. Well, good afternoon to you too. I appreciate you. My first comment from Mystical Rainbow. Oh, I like that. I like that. Thank you very much. Glad you could jump on again. Just sort of a very impromptu. So I'm thinking this might have a little less people than normal when we do live stream, and maybe that will be good. We can do a little bit more discussion. Sometimes the comments and the chat gets away from me. So anyways, before we get started, we'll give a couple more minutes for people to come on. But as we do that, I just want to give you guys a little update on the channel, where we're at. And again, this will just take a minute or so. First of all, we're at 11,000 subscribers now, and that's just under like 9 months. So can't say how much, how thankful I am for you guys, joining the community. I really, really appreciate that, and never thought we would get, the 11,000 subscribers. I just never thought I would do that. Anyways, thank you guys for that. And again, continue to just want to keep growing the community. And, and one of the things that came up on one of the first live streams I did was somebody asked, do I have any social media? And I hadn't. And for a lot of reasons, social media has just not been the easiest thing for me. But based on that, I decided to expand because there have been some questions. And the first expansion into social media has been Instagram. So definitely add me there. Definitely would like to see you guys there. And we're starting to, just had out a week, and I think over 20 some followers there. So really appreciate that. What else? One of the things that have come up also from live streams and comments, again, just as I see more people are joining, so we'll be getting to the main part of it real soon here. But one of the big things that has been sort of a struggle for the channel has been some of the audio. I know that hasn't been great. Now today, keep in mind, I am just using my webcam, so I know the audio won't be great here. But this last week, I did try a couple of things with a new microphone. It's a shotgun mic. I've been using a lavalier one. Hopefully, I'm getting better with that. Again, just trying to still work on a little bit of a budget, not going crazy. As the channel continues to grow, I will put more money into it. But it's just, it's been slow and steady. Even though we're growing, there's not a lot of money on the ad revenue side. So anything you guys can do to help me grow the channel. And again, that just really starts easily with just watching the videos, liking them, every once in a while, not skipping an ad that goes through. I know that's hard to do because I'm a skipper too. Another thing is, there's a super chat, you always can do that. That helps support the channel. And again, anything I can do for anything that comes towards this channel will actually be reinvested into it. So anyways, that's sort of an update. And again, just a couple minutes in, I see we got 17 people. I got 6 thumbs up. I'll take a little bit more. Don't be stingy with them if you can. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started with this week. So, every week, except for those really slow weeks where we don't have much going on. I do an IPO this week episode. So we talked about, I believe there was 8 companies that came out this week that were expected to come out. And we knew with about 3 of them were really big names that everybody had heard about. And I talked about them before on an early 21 or early 2021 video. We're talking about which is coming out. And then I gave another video with sort of what my thoughts are on them. Those big companies, as you guys know, are Poshmark, Petco, and Affirm. And I just want to give you some thoughts on those ones. And again, I'm sure you guys have, some thoughts you can share too. But this market is crazy. And one of the things that I did on, I believe it was Wednesday when Affirm came out, I put a video out. And because, anybody that's really been interested in Affirm, and I had Affirm as a company I'd like to consider, but it wasn't a must-have for me. I mentioned that in a previous video. And the biggest reason I said that was, while they've done a lot, their revenue's been good. One of the concerns I have is it's becoming a busier as far as competition in the buy now, pay later thing. And I believe that there could potentially be some regulatory risk for all those companies. So it wasn't a great one for me, but I still thought, at the right price, it would be a company to consider. Well, watching what happened there, and knowing that Affirm also had delayed their IPO since December, which we talked about as well. Once they did that, the whole idea was that they wanted to get better pricing. So your expectation was, okay, it's priced at $49. Maybe it's going to trade around $70 when it opened. Well, of course, it doubled and it's gone up since, and it's a little bit pulling back today. Where is it right now? It's still around $117. So it's still really high. And so my question with that last video was really, and I know sometimes I ramble when I do unscripted videos, but the point was, why did they delay it for the getting better value and try to get better pricing when it still just came out crazy like that? So could they have won a higher price? Maybe. So we talked about that a lot in the comments with some of you guys. Definitely, enjoyed that. So anyways, so some of these companies, including Poshmark, which I had as a company that, again, I think has some value to it. And again, the right price, I would not have expected it to come out of the gates as crazy as it did as well. Now today it is down some. And again, typically you see that with IPOs, usually the first day or two, there's that big bounce and then it starts to settle. So that's not uncommon. But again, I just thought Poshmark came out pretty high. And the biggest reason there, and I mentioned this as well, they have some competition. I mean, you think of selling secondhand items through like eBay. Now, eBay probably charges less, but I think the thing Poshmark has that potential is really on that social aspect, where if they can, create a product that people consider superior. So if you like fashion and secondhand items, and again, we see that a lot of women tend to use the site. It could sort of be similar to, no, I'm stretching this here. It's not the same, but it could be like an Apple where, you have a lot of smartphones you can get, but if you find that there's one that's really a superior product, or at least there's a feeling that it is, then even though you charge more, which we know Poshmark has higher fees than eBay, they still could do really well, and again, targeting their demographics. So I like Poshmark. Didn't think it was one that I had to have, and at the price is not having it. And then the last of the big three was Petco, and I'll be honest with you, that was not one I was interested at all. Too much debt. All of the just the competition that's out there, whether it's online or other more brick and mortar stores. And again, the purpose of the IPO is really to pay back some of that debt. So just was not something that was interesting to me. But and it still came out high. And I'll be honest, I was surprised with that. So I see the comments are coming up, and I'm going to get to those in a second. But one of the things I wanted to do is just go through a little bit of a list if you were like me and thought, wow, these were companies I was maybe interested in, but I can't pay those prices. So some of the strategies that you can do are, really simply, let's say you love the stock, or you really love the company, but you just don't like it at that price. But you're also afraid that it's going to keep going up. Now, that a lot of the trends are that they will come back down a little bit. It may not go back to where you like it to go, but in this IPO market, it's higher, and they're not coming back as easily. So my thought is, or strategy that I can share, is if you really like a company, you don't want to miss out and you're afraid it's going to go up, you can always consider just taking a little bit, buying a little bit right now, taking a small position, and then add to it if there's better entries. That way you feel like you have some stock in the company, you have a little bit of an investment there. But if you are concerned it's going to drop, then you don't have to worry that you went in way too high. That's a concern for a lot of these IPOs. So so it really comes down to that dollar cost averaging strategy, which is always a good strategy to use. So one thing you can do there. The second thing is really having patience, and that's not always easy. But if you can have some patience and put it on your watch list, there are usually some opportunities later where you have to get it potentially at a better price. One of the first ones can be at the end of a quiet period, and quiet periods are usually about 25 days after the stock starts to trade. So basically what the quiet period is any company that was the company itself or any of the underwriters or banks in the IPO, they basically can't release any research before that 25 days are up. And what typically happens is once those 25 days are up, those are the companies that are putting it out. And because they were involved with the, IPO itself, they tend to have good things to say about the company. So it's sort of, an area you can watch too. So maybe look at that, maybe getting in before the end of the quiet period ends, usually a little bit of a pop right after that. The second one is those lockup expirations. And, we had a video on that a couple of weeks ago where I gave examples of what tends to happen or what has happened with some of the bigger companies that have had them recently. If you haven't seen that video, definitely check that one out to get a better understanding of what lockups are. But traditionally, lockup periods were about 180 days. Now, they're having these criteria where they can, let some of the shares be able to trade earlier. By keeping an idea of when lockups are expiring, you have the opportunity to potentially get the stock at a cheaper price there. So another strategy you can consider is there. Another thing is, let's say it's a company that's in a pretty busy industry where there's a lot of competition. Something else you could consider is if you like the industry more than the company itself, sometimes at an IPO, you can look at some of the competitors, which might be trading a little bit down because they're seeing another company enter the market as far as people to invest in. That doesn't always happen, but that has happened before. So something you can do is, look at another company in the industry, get some exposure that way, and then continue to watch the company that IPO just recently. So again, just a few strategies you guys can consider when you're looking at an IPO that comes out hotter than you would have ever thought it would have came out, and again, you're screwed. So, so anyways, just a couple of strategies just to share with you before we get started, and I definitely want to get to the chat. So let's go ahead and do that. We got someone from Germany. Greetings. And I did, when I decided to do this live chat today, I know a lot of people in other parts of the world, which completely blows my mind that it's, that I have everybody, from all parts of the world in the community, was to try to have some of the live streams at different times so I could involve more people. I know with I think we've done a handful so far. They've all tend to be, I lived in the Eastern time zone in the US. They all tend to be in the evenings, and so I thought, well, this might give an opportunity for some other people. So really cool. Someone has to go get a pizza. And I will, first of all, thanks for your comment. And I will say thank you for the comment. Appreciate that. Arlene, you're awesome. Thanks for your content. Thank you. Anybody that watches me, I appreciate, because I know I'm not typical like a lot of the other channels where a lot of people are bouncing all over the thing and they're saying bye, and they're a little bit more exciting. Sometimes people call me boring. But my purpose here is not to be someone that's trying to sell you on a company. Even if I own the stock in it, I'm not going to ever tell you what to do. And usually the companies that do have stocks or shares, then I'll let you guys know. But it's really more, I look at the channels to be more educational, hopefully. Sometimes it's more opinion, and I try to tell you when those videos have more opinion. And I'm trying to do more of those instead of just saying that clear cut, just that clear cut information, which can be a little dry at times. Chris, great to see you on here. And any trees more attack? No, don't jinx me. That was scary. And so just as a real quick story, if you guys have been with me for a while, I posted a picture where a tree had come down and I chopped it all up with the chainsaw. And then that was only what had fallen. And then there was a big, about 20, 30 foot stump that hadn't fallen. Well, that was a different day. I had to cut that thing down and it didn't fall in the direction I wanted it to go, but no harm, no foul. So I survived that. And on Roblox, I'm excited about Roblox. I had shared in that one video, talked about what my thoughts are on some of the early the early IPOs for 2021. And really excited about Roblox for a couple of reasons. One, I think it's a company, it was not, and again, just maybe because I don't have kids or whatever, it wasn't a company that I knew really hard anything about until a few months ago. But having learned more about it and really seeing the reach that it has, and also getting an idea of where they're trying to grow and expand, the company itself, I think is really solid. And I had started putting together a really comprehensive video for when it started to trade, and I'm glad I sort of put that on the back burner with it getting delayed, but I will get back to that. So we'll definitely have a comp video when it comes out. The reason I'm really excited about it is because of the direct listing, and because I'm a big fan of the direct listing format. And now I feel like that since that barrier of not being able to raise capital, direct listings is going away, I really would like to see more companies do it. Now, Roblox didn't do that. What they chose to do is get that, private fundraising round before the IPO. So it's sort of a way to, get it out of the way without dealing with the new rules. And no one really has seen that work yet. And I think that's what's probably holding people up. But really excited about it because I feel like I can do more when it comes to direct listing. We can talk more about, what I feel like would be the proper prices. It's a little trickier with an IPO when you have a bank comes out and they set an IPO price. There's a range, and then of course a lot of times prices within the range or a little bit above, or even sometimes a little bit below. In those situations, they have a lot more information than I have, but like when I can just sort of look at it with a blank slate, I sort of like that, and so I'm looking forward to Roblox. Pauline, how long have you been investing? Well, I have been investing, and this is a great question, for 20, let's see, probably not quite 25 years, but close, if not 25 years. It was in the late 90s. I got my start, really when tech was going crazy, the dot-coms were going. And so I saw that dot-com bubble. And so, there's a lot of, and I look at the demographics of the community, and I see a lot of people are younger in the community. And so a lot of times people will tell me in the comments, again, I can take it, that I'm more negative. And it's not that I'm being negative, it's just that I'm being more cautious because I've seen it, things can go bad. For anybody that invested through the 2000s, unless certain stocks here or there did well, but the market in itself did not do great for that whole 10 years. Now, the most recent decade has done phenomenal. So if you're just used to that, you think, well, it's always going to go that way. Well, it doesn't always go that way. So I tend to just be a little bit more cautious. And so when I look at prices and say, oh boy, Poshmark was trading at $100 plus yesterday, even though the people in the know thought it was going to be in the $40. My concern is with all of the heating of this market, and not just the IPOs, even though the IPOs are crazy. I just feel like there's a lot more risk that the people aren't really seeing here. And again, I just want to share that with you. So that's why I do that. Danny, no, I don't know, other than it's going to be February most likely, because when I looked at Roblox's updated amended S1 form, they do have it as February, but they don't have a date in there. I haven't really heard anything else. And this week, I'll be honest, I haven't looked more into Roblox. I was so busy with everything else. But as far as I know, it's just going to be somewhere in February. And as soon as I know, I always say this for the big companies, and there's a lot of interest in, I'll either put up a video on it or I'll put a community post on. So I always just say, put your notification bells on, and as soon as I have it, I'll share that with you. It's a great question. This is from Orange One. Could you please tell us a little bit about your investing related background? So I don't, and I've been very clear on this for anybody that's newer here, I am not anybody that has that kind of a career. I'm actually, my career is actually in healthcare. I'm a doctor of occupational therapy. So really it is not, I'm not an investment manager. I don't work for any investment companies. It really was learning on my own. And, I always say that this channel really wasn't meant to be about IPOs or, investing particularly. It was really about learning things that I have learned along the way. So a lot of people ask me about the channel's name being Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And the idea really with the channel was I wanted to talk a little about things that I had learned and could share with you guys. And as somebody that has been I train other therapists. I, feel like I have a lot of experience on a lot of areas, and I thought I could train that. Well, what happened was the videos I did on investing, and particularly IPOs, took off, and then the other areas where there's so many other millions of videos out there, those ones didn't. So I sort of focused more there. So I never claimed to be somebody that knows what is going to happen. And I always say, if I could predict the future, I would tell you guys, but I can't. And so, for me, it's always more about just sharing what my, when I give you the information, like on IPO this week, that's purely information. And when I add an opinion or my own analysis, I'd always let you know that because I want you guys to be really clear that I don't have some inside information that's going to guide you into something. It's really making you look at it maybe a different perspective and think about it. But at the end of the day, you make the decision that's best for yourself. So that's really what I wanted to say there. Okay. Appreciate Dan. I'm just getting through yours, and sometimes these chats get away from me. The only one I was kind of interested in was Petco, similar to Chewy. And again, my thing is, when I look at Petco, it's, I'm a big fan actually of the names that I've heard of. So when companies like when Rocket came out or Airbnb, those are really interesting to me because they're established, they already make money, and I just feel good about them. And Petco is a company that has a pretty interesting history in that it's been public, I think 2 other times before this one. And it's gone back and went private. The biggest issue I have with Petco is, and I believe I shared in another video on the positives, I think too, but the negatives are, again, they have a lot of debt. They're still going to have a lot of debt, even after the IPO. It's a competitive thing, and you mentioned Chewy, and that's definitely a competitor, and and they've done well. And there's no question that people with pets have actually, with the pandemic, the numbers have gone up. I hope people that have gotten more pets during the last year continue to take care of them when they start having to go back out of the house more often. So I like the company. The other thing that I do like about them is that they are, by having already the brick and mortar stores, they have that veterinary type of services right there. And anybody that knows that has paid for anything for a dog or cat, it can be really expensive. So they have some opportunity there. So my thing is, it's not that it's a bad company. It's just that it comes in with that little bit of a negative. When I see that a company is doing an IPO basically to get money to pay off other issues, it's hard for me to just get in right then. So just my thoughts. Doesn't mean it's a bad company. It just wasn't one of those for me that that I would go for. And I think, as I shared before with you guys on the channel, for anybody that's been here for a while, there's a few things I look at and I like for companies. The biggest thing is that company that has very limited competition or has that big moat, as they say. When you're a company with like competition, you really have to exceed and excel above everybody. When you are the market leader and even the new ones come along, it's a little bit easier to ride the bumps. Whereas if you make a misstep, another company can do well. And again, sometimes I get talking too much. Sorry about that. Mystical Rainbow, I'm curious if you feel like the current IPO mania is unprecedented. Would not say it's unprecedented because, again, I remember a lot of this about 20 years ago. And I think because I'm more focused on it, obviously, with the channel now, I feel a little bit, sometimes like you guys, I almost feel like, am I missing something? Because like I make an idea, I come up with a thought on a company, and then, I just like, I can't buy every company. I'm not going to buy every company. And I think, wow, if I would just probably play the odds, I'd come out ahead. But having seen how this goes, where the curve keeps going, I just feel like, whether the whole market sort of starts to struggle, and I think I've felt like this for a while, so I could be wrong. I feel like there's a correction coming anyways in the general market. And I just feel like with some of the IPOs, there's so many of them that the money's going to keep being moved. And so I'm a little concerned. So I still always try to go back to the companies that I feel that are good. And when they're profitable or have a path to profitability, I'm more interested in those companies. But unprecedented, it technically isn't. And I think there was another year, I want to say even as early or recent as 2014, that actually made more money from the IPO market than 2020, even though you would believe 2020 went crazy. But I think for the number of companies, it feels unprecedented, but I'm not sure that it is. Bill, there's a name I'm familiar with. Good afternoon. So you're 1 hour behind me if you're in Illinois. Anuj Gupta, I've commented with you back and forth. What do I think about the stimulus, and how do I think it will affect the overall market? So that's a good point. It's a great question. So, we got news that the president-elect would be coming out yesterday and talk about the stimulus. And I thought that it was going to be dependent on what he said, but I felt that overall the market would probably react positively. I think the reason it didn't today was, I believe some people thought there were going to be a bigger number. So I think they were thinking over the $2 trillion number, even closer to 3 that he was going to say, which it came out about 1.9. And I think that the fact that there was it was mostly focusing about, individual types of workers. So not so much as supporting industries, when I watched them speak. And so I think that might have sort of somewhat dampened it a little bit. So not really 100% sure on that, but that was sort of just my thought. Pauline, so you talked about the new ETF that's going to come out from ARK about space. And so I don't think we're going to Mars anytime soon. That's just my thought. But just like a couple of years ago, I didn't think we were going to have automated cars yet. And I'm not saying they're going to happen. I don't think, at some point we'll probably get to Mars, but I don't think we're ready for that yet. But what I do like about space is the idea of something like Starlink from SpaceX, where using space in the practical manners, such as the satellites and communication and potentially defense and those kind of things. I think there's a lot of money that can potentially be made there, and I think that companies that support that can really have that take off. So I feel like that's going to be one to watch, and it probably will do extremely well, especially out of the gate. I think it really depends on the companies that you have in there, and of course, at this point, I don't know what those will be. You can sort of maybe guess. Chris, I've seen Phantom Menace, which I've seen them all. I've seen all of them Star Wars. Yeah, well, let's hope there's a lot of growth going on here. So, Flimsy Indo made it. He's been liking my new thumbnails. I've been trying something a little bit different. I'm glad to see you could make it. I didn't give you that heads up this time. I didn't want you to feel obligated. One life, one chance. The truth is nobody knows anything. Yes, and so that's why I never claimed to know anything. I can look at what I think the valuation is and compare it to another company or where I think the growth is. But at the end of the day, like I can look at Affirm and say they're trading too high. But if people are willing to pay for it, well, then that's what the market is. Now, the question will be, will they be willing to pay for that same amount 2 weeks from now? And I don't know that. But again, it's just sort of like looking at trends. And that's why I really wanted to make that video on the lockup periods, with that because we've talked about them a lot, especially for anybody that's interested in Palantir, which we covered a lot on this channel. Just knowing that there are some trends, they're not 100% because if they were, everybody would follow it and then the trend would go away. But there are some trends, and so that's the kind of videos I really like to do more of versus the IPO this week, which for me is a little bit boring. It takes a lot of time, but it takes a lot of time as far as just pulling information, and because I go to a handful of different sites and try to pull it in, but I really like trying to tell you guys something that's more helpful from a learning perspective than just talk about the company of the week. So and totally agree. All we can do is make educated bets with some due diligence. Completely agree. Great question, Flimsy Indo, as far as the traditional direct listing and the new direct listing. So that's something, one of those videos I would like to do. And just finding time. It's always finding time for me. But with the direct listing, and I actually had a really good comment. I think it was just yesterday or the day before, just really going back and forth about the direct listing and how it is different than a traditional IPO and whatnot. But so historically, direct listing, and there's really not been a lot of them. And the biggest reason is because you can't really, at the direct listing, you can't really raise new capital. And most of the time when people go public, or the companies go public, they want to pull in new money to help either grow the company, or in the case of Petco, trying to pay off some of the debt. Whatever the case is, that's a lot of the purpose for it. But there are some companies that specifically, if they are well-funded, if they don't really need the capital, but they're really just looking for an opportunity for their insiders and the current shareholders to be able to sell their shares. Because on the private market, they're very, as you guys know, most people, I don't know how many people on this chat has ever bought a share on the private market, but most people don't. I've never done it. And so the idea with a traditional direct listing is you get a chance to put the stock that you already have out there, and it can sell for whatever the market says. And in most cases, there are no lockup expirations because there's no lockup agreement signed. Because if everybody that was an insider or already had stock in it signed a lockup, then there would be no stock to sell because there's no created shares, which is what happens with an IPO. An IPO, they create new shares. The underwriters and the banks, they hold the IPO event, which is the day before the trading begins. And those are the shares that are then sold and then traded. All the other shares from before are generally tied up in lockup agreements. So, so when you get back to the direct listing, you don't have that, and you just have all of the shares out there. With the new rule is you can start to raise capital. And again, nobody has done this yet. And I think once they do that, I think it's just that somebody wants to see how it works before they go that route. And once you start getting more that works, I just think that that's going to be the way to go. And the benefit of a direct listing from an investor perspective, so somebody like us that are not working for the big banks, like you sort of have a false price when it comes to like a traditional IPO, because again, so many of the shares, and we talk about locked up shares, a lot of times it's around 80 to 90% of the shares that are locked up. So really, out of all those outstanding shares, there's only about 10% that are really traded. So again, you have very little supply. Demand's high because there's so much going on, at the, with the run up towards the IPO. Watch CNBC, they're promoting it left and right. So there's a lot of demand, but the supply is lower. Now, with a direct listing, you don't have to have that. And I know Palantir did it, which was really different than most, but most direct listings don't do that. And so all the shares go out or potentially can be traded. That doesn't mean they're all going to trade, because if you have that share, you might say, I'll sell it at the right price. And so if enough interest comes, then you might get your price. Otherwise, the stock could actually go down because there's so many shares out there. So with and again, I know I sort of jump around a little bit, but So the big difference, though, is with a company that wants to now gain money and does not want to go the traditional IPO route, which is very costly to get the underwriters, and all that. This will be a cheaper way for them to raise capital without all of this, the expenses of doing a traditional IPO, and then selling the shares at prices that are lower than what the market would say that's worth. So, for instance, we saw with Affirm, their IPO price was $49. First day, they start trading at $100. And this, to me, was the question, again, why I put that other video out is, the whole idea with them delaying their IPO was to make sure they got proper pricing, because the company only gets money at the IPO price that's sold on that IPO day. Once it starts trading, they don't make money on that. Now, there are benefits for the stock to be higher than with the IPO prices, in that, number one, it looks successful. It shows that there's demand, and it shows that there's even more demand out there. But they don't make any money on that. And so, again, it's great to say you have a big market cap, but you left money on the table in that regard. So with a traditional a direct listing, the way it can go is the company can get money for new shares as they raise capital. They get that money. It's not going to anybody else as far as underwriters. Now there will be banks involved still. They're still going to work on disclosures and things like that. But I do feel like a direct listing will be a little bit safer than a SPAC, because there's still going to be more disclosures needed than what a SPAC does. And I think it'll be better for investors, because we're not getting the shares or the opportunity to get the shares secondhand, because they're all going to be on day one. So theoretically, once the direct listing happens, all of the big banks and me and you can go ahead and try to trade for the shares then. Now, again, it's not going to be exactly that way, but that's what it goes. Anyways, sorry that I can't really get going there. All right, wow, that's already 40 minutes. Let's see, I think I'm caught up. Oh, great, and I never get caught. But anyways, so that's sort of where things are, and I hope I answered your question. Again, I do plan to make a video on that direct listing, because I think it's important. And I thought about too, like, what are companies that could potentially do that? And one of the, we know Roblox is doing it, which is exciting. I feel like Coinbase could consider doing that. I also feel like Robinhood, who we had a little bit of information about Robinhood, about them still going with an IPO, but putting their shares towards people on their platform, which I think is a step in the right direction. But companies like that, I think, would really make sense to do a direct listing. Oh boy, there's more. So I thought I was caught up, and no, it doesn't look like. Do you have any opinion on Southeast Asia in general? So recently, and again, we'll go for a few more minutes here. So recently, we know there was the tensions coming up and potentially some companies being delisted from the American exchanges and all that. That's one of the more of immediate concern. But there's always been concerns when it comes to dealing with really any shares or any company that's overseas, because different countries obviously are going to be different regulations on what they report and what the scrutiny of their practices are. So like China, for instance, and again, I know that's not necessarily Southeast Asia or all of Southeast, but we've seen issues already there. We saw that with, the famous one is Luckin Coffee. So I typically don't invest in them, but there are some situations where I know, which was I think it was a Peter Thiel and somebody else. They just did a SPAC a couple of months ago in Asia. I don't think they identified anybody yet, but they, I think there's opportunities there, and there's a lot of stocks that have done really well. I've just been a little bit more skeptical. Again, as I said earlier, because I've seen bad things, I tend to be a little bit more conservative when it comes to investing. So while I think there's a lot of growth over there, a lot of potential, what I might suggest is, and I've done this actually, is invest in more of an ETF or mutual fund that takes a bunch of those companies versus maybe picking in one or choosing. And now you can make more money if you pick like Neo when it was lower, and of course it jumped. No one, can say that, but again, and I can miss some of those, but that's just sort of my thoughts on Southeast Asia. I think there's a lot there, but I think you just have to be aware that there's more risk there. So, and then just one more thing about the SPACs, and I've said this before, I would like to do more with SPACs here. With the IPOs have been crazy. SPACs are just hard for me to cover because they don't give you the information as much. So when a SPAC comes out, you just basically know about the management team. And again, if you know that, there's a Peter Thiel behind it, you're probably interested. But for me, it's a lot of just guessing and who do I think it's going to merge with? And to me, that's not as helpful. And then by the time the merger happens, a lot of times it's a black and white information. So I haven't done as much with SPACs. I've done a little bit. I talked a little bit about SoFi last week or this past week, and I would like to do more of it, but I'll probably just do more targeted there. So really my focus has been a little bit more on traditional IPOs, indirect listings first, and then when I have time for the SPACs. So Chris, again, see more what you're doing. And again, I know you do a lot with the SPACs, and I think IPOE, which is why I talked about that. I think that's probably a really strong one to get into. I mean, when you look at the track record of what what he's done, it's probably one to consider. You're welcome, Flimziendo. Really appreciate it. Zombie Grizzly put a couple things for us to look into. Good question about the Palantir lockup. So here's my thought about Palantir, because I know there's so much interest in Palantir. They, you're in this period, and you guys are seeing it. There's news that comes out. There's an analyst says this. The city said let's sell and $15 target. Like, you're going to have this through the expiration happen, and Palantir has there's been some. The drop with the Mithril, potentially the shares being bought there. They've had, Alice Karp doing a couple PR things. He did the one that we talked about before. We know there's a demo day coming. Those kind of things are going to help push the stock up. And then somebody that's like me, that's looking at what the valuation probably should be, is thinking, it's probably a little high, too far, too fast type of thing. But the issue that I have with it, I don't know what it's going to do, because it's been in this steady range really since December, beginning of December now, and so there's little blips up and down, but in that mid $20 range. So it could go up after it, or it could go down. But my thought has always been is because we know there's so many shares out there, and again that whole glut of shares hitting the market could push the stock down, which we've seen happens, as I talked about in the other video, especially if it's priced higher than where, there was when it was an IPO, at least, which just wasn't one, where they have an IPO price. If it's usually below there, then sometimes the price will shoot up after it, because then it takes that risk off the table. My biggest thing has always been, though, if you believe in the company, and you think the price is fair now, why even somebody may think it's a little overvalued. I don't think it's a lot overvalued, even if it is. You could still buy a little bit here and then keep some money and then just see what happens with the lockup. But once the lockup happens, or the expiration happens, whatever the price does, you can feel a little bit more confident that that's probably more legitimate of what the price is. So if it goes up, you can buy it. You paid a little bit more, but you took the whole risk of a lot of shares being sold right at going into the lockup expiration. Now, that's not to say that some of the insiders with a lot of shares couldn't say, well, I'm going to hold it for another week and just really help drive the price. There's so many things that goes on with these companies. And this is why I'm never a fan of any company. A lot of people with some of these companies, they just love them to death. It is sort of a game, and every company that is getting ready to go into an IPO or direct listing, particularly ones with lockup expirations, they are set up. They set themselves up months in advance so that earnings are going to probably look good. Guidance will probably, they can't do that as much, but it'll probably be good. So they're setting everything up so that people don't sell off at the end of the lockup when the agreements expire. So you have to keep all of that in mind. But again, it always comes down if you're big under the company. My take at these prices, I think if you got in under $20, you're probably feeling pretty safe. If you got in, this first 3 or 4 weeks when you're around $10, definitely hold. But there could be pressure to push it down because of the lockups. But then in those analyst reports, the pressure to go up can be things like in demo day, potentially a good earnings report. And if they could just show one major customer that is on the enterprise side, I think that catalyst would just go up. And I'm not saying that they don't have that. They might have that, but we haven't heard any reports. So to me, it's pins and needles. If you like them, buy. But if you don't, feel free to wait. But holding, I never want to tell you guys what to do because, again, as we talked about earlier, I can't predict the future. But there's nothing always wrong too. If you've made some money, you want to take a little bit of profits now and then ride the rest. You can do that. I just recently did a little bit of that with Tesla. I feel like they did everything possible to get into the S&P, and so earlier this week or end of last week, whatever, I did sell just a little bit of shares just to take some profits. Never a bad idea to do that. Now with Tesla, it could triple in the next month, and then I could be completely out. So, all right, let me just go through a little bit quicker here. I talked a little bit about the .com. I think the .com era is a little bit different. I think it was worse. I think there was more companies that came. I think there was more companies that didn't have a lot behind them. And this is what I always get a little concerned about with the SPAC companies. You just don't get that scrutiny that you get from a traditional IPO. So I'm a little bit more worried on the SPAC side when it comes to it, less worried about the IPOs compared to the .com. So good question. Astro Jack, hey, I talked a little bit at the beginning of the video. I don't know if you saw this. I did try another mic, and I talked a little bit about the beginning of the video. I'm not using that one today. I'm just using the webcam. So hopefully that's a little bit better. But definitely appreciate your reaching out to me, and might be able to follow up. So I don't know if that last video you thought was any better or not. You can let me know in a comment. Starbucks News, hey. Just talked a little bit yesterday. You basically encapsulated my last video in one line. I have to talk for 4 minutes or whatever. Oh yeah, I think if you got Palantir in that first couple of days, your downside risk is very low for it to go below that because of the lockups. I think it could get pressured into the upper teens on the worst side, and on the high side, I think that there could be a little bit of a drop going into it, and then it could start to go up a little bit, maybe break that $30 again. Just really trying to go through here. Hey, as I get to the last some of the comments here, just as a reminder for anybody that's still on, appreciate that like button being pushed. It definitely helps me in the channel. It helps just makes us look like you guys care about what I say. So I really appreciate that. I can't pronounce your name, but I really appreciate that. Majidi's, again, I'm terrible with names, but thank you. I really, comments like yours and for everybody else, that really helps keep me motivated. Every once in a while, there's a bad one. I have thick skin. I can take it. So, hey, David, sorry you joined late. Hopefully you get a chance to, I will put up I will put up the replay if you want to check it out. And talked a little bit about Roblox already, and a little bit about Coinbase. Not much about Coinbase other than I would like to see them actually do the direct listing. I don't know if they will, but don't have much more yet on Coinbase since the last video I made. Just as an intro. I am expecting though to hear something sooner than later. So when I get that, I'll talk a little bit more about it. But super excited about Roblox for what that means is, for us being able to not feel like secondhand citizens by not having to wait till the banks pick over the shares first. So, yeah, and then Wish. So Wish, let me take a little drink here. All right, this will be my last comment. So, or last thing in the chat I'm going to talk about, because we're already 15 minutes already. Time flies, and I talk a lot. The thing about Wish is that, to me, there was a lot of negative there. And again, and I sort of, I predicted it wouldn't go crazy. But Wish did one of those things I talked about earlier, which was if you waited to before the quiet period ended, you could expect with the pricing of the shares trading much lower, percentage-wise, much lower than where the IPO price was. You could just almost guess that all those people that were involved in the IPO, those analysts, you were going to start seeing research reports to push it. And so that's what happened there. I think that's part of what's happened there. Now, I know there was a little bit of a correction today. I don't know what it's doing exactly right now. But so they're closer to where they were a few days. They're actually closer to the IPO price, but they definitely popped yesterday. I said I would just, but Malik, there's I got you on here. You not much from. I haven't followed Asana recently. And you know what? And they were, I think I'm saying this right. I believe they also did the direct listing. They and Palantir did at the same time. I haven't followed them much since I think the last comment you had. I have to double check into them. And then Mark, this is the first time for everybody, but Mark, I'm glad to have you on the channel. And hopefully, if you haven't subscribed, you will subscribe. I know I'm not for everybody. I'm more a little bit laid back in a lot of ways, and I don't tell people what to do, but I don't like being told what to do. So, but anyways, if anybody that is here for the first time, definitely subscribe. What we try to do is, every week I try to have my IPO This Week episode. It usually comes out on a Monday or a Sunday, depending on the time, where we just talk about the companies. And then I try to have a couple more videos where, we do a little bit more analysis or something else that big. So I try to share that. So, and I'm continuing wanting to do more, definitely wanting to do more. So, and thank you. It's already done. So, all right. So as we finish up here, just one couple quick points. Thank you so much for everybody's time. Again, sorry, this was impromptu. So David, I know you got in late, but that was probably because of my fault. I didn't tell anybody. But I'll try to move these around, and I'll try to give you a little bit more heads up. We do live streams. Again, for anybody that has asked in the past about social media, I'm taking baby steps there. I love that. The What About Bob movie, if you've ever seen that, that's a little dated too, but baby steps. So my first step was going on Instagram. So if you have Instagram, you want to add me there. I try to add a little bit of extra stuff there as well. So that, and again, last thing I will say is don't be stingy again with that like button. If when you're watching any of my videos, even if you don't necessarily agree with it, a like just helps the channel grow. And again, the more we can grow, the more I will do. And whether it's investing in better audio, whether it's being able to do more videos, those are things that I'll do. So anything you guys can do to help me, I really appreciate that. So anyways, have a great rest of your day, great weekend. I will look forward to having my IPO This Week video out, and I will probably talk to you guys in the comments. All right, guys, take care.